What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we're going over year 2 running backs I've been avoiding in drafts. We'll start things off with Achane. I know I've talked a lot about him recently, so I'll make this one a little bit more brief. And while his ADP is falling, he's looking a little bit more attractive right now, finally ending up in the 3rd round a little bit more often. I said a few times, I think he needs to fall more into like the late 3rd into the 4th round. I'll absolutely take him at that point. While he's had a 2nd round ADP, it's a little bit too early for me, but falling finally into that 3rd round. Mostert still there. Jalen Wright, really good prospect. Hasn't had an elite open to camp, but he's a really good prospect. And if they just didn't have any other running back options, right? I could see a world where Achane hits 15, 16, 17 touches a week, is a top 5 running back just based off efficiency. But I don't think that's what Miami wants. Of course, they would love it if he had 2,500 yards because he's overly efficient, right? That would be great. But I don't think they want to overload him with touches because they know their system is great. They have 3 really strong running backs. Why would you overload one of them? So I think they're going to rotate all 3 a lot more often than people are anticipating, just in an effort to keep everyone healthy, keep everyone fresh and explosive all game long. If you've got 3 great running backs, why? Why would you overload Achane, increase the risk of injury, decrease his efficiency later in the season, later in games? It would just make no real sense. And that's just not something I want to see in round 2. We know how important the first 4 rounds of drafts are, but especially first 2 rounds. There are very few busts in the first 2 rounds each season. And so the opportunity cost is very, very high. And if you're taking a running back that's, almost certainly going to be in a committee in round 2, it's a little tough. So again, going more often now in round 3. Once his ADP settles, hopefully in that mid 3rd and sometimes get him in the 4th, now I'm going to start attacking. Until that point, I'm a no for the round 2 ADP. Another running back I'm avoiding is Zach Charbonnet, which is unfortunate because I do think he's a really talented running back. And I will say, among the 4 other running backs we're going to talk about today, I am actively avoiding him the least. I just never seem to end up with him. He goes in the same range as Chase Brown, Blake Corum, Jerome Ford. He goes about a round ahead of Rico Dowdle, Marshawn Lloyd, Kendre Miller, Jalen Wright. Now, I'm not saying Charbonnet should be drafted behind all of them. That's not what I have in the rankings, but I kind of get into this range and I have a really difficult time drafting him when usually, 6 or 7 of those names are still on the board. He kind of goes, right at the top of that list. But I would say the vast majority of the time, you look at it and 4 to 6 of those names are still there. And so what ends up happening is I only really want to draft him on those hero RB or RB0 teams when I really need a bunch of late round options. So I look at that list of 7 or 8 I just mentioned, and maybe I want to try and load up on 2 or 3 of them. Then I end up with Charbonnet. But aside from those builds, when I'm not trying to just overload running back late, I kind of look at the options and I'm like, well, if I'm going to get someone very similar to him a round later, a round and a half, 2 rounds later, I just kind of lean towards waiting for that opportunity and then taking a different position a little bit early in the draft. But again, main takeaway, the Seahawks are going to be a good offense, but Ken Walker is their lead running back. There isn't a big chance at all of Charbonnet overtaking Ken Walker unless there's an injury. And so when you're looking in this range, I would just wait another round and take one of Dowdle, Lloyd, Miller, Wright, because those are also handcuff running backs, but they're just going to cost you a little bit less. Again, if you go hero RB, 0 RB, and you really need to just overload high upside running backs in this round 10 to 12 range, then I'm perfectly comfortable taking him at his ADP. It just hasn't seemed to have been happening for me much recently. So again, not actively avoiding him, but I haven't drafted him all that much. Player with similar-ish takeaways, but I feel a little bit less confidence in, is Roschon Johnson. People were excited about Roschon last season because, remember, he was stuck behind Bijan in college, and so the thinking was, it's kind of like the shiny new toy narrative, but it's people are okay, what if he's good? What if, Bijan is just amazing and any running back would have been a backup behind him, but what if Roschon's actually very good, never had a chance to break out, comes in, dominates as a rookie? Didn't really play out that way. Played 15 of 17 games as a rookie, never hit 40 rushing yards, despite both Foreman and Herbert suffering injuries and missing time. So wasn't a great rookie season. The Bears this offseason to go out and give a larger than expected contract to DeAndre Swift. I honestly just don't really see a path to Roschon being fantasy viable this season. I think he could mix in here and there for some, 4 or 5 reception games. Maybe on Underdog, he has like 4 touchdowns on the season. You kind of rotate him in there into your starting lineup, and it's like, he hits a few times, and you're like, okay, got some value there. But I think especially for all of you in redraft leagues, like I suppose Swift could get a season-ending injury, right? That's probably the easiest path to Roschon producing. But even if that happens, I think Khalil Herbert's a better early down running back. I think there's a chance they could bring someone else in. Like, I just don't see a world where in a redraft league, you are putting him in at running back 2 for more than like a 1 or a 2 week stretch and feeling good about it. And again, that's even assuming an injury. If Swift doesn't get hurt, there's no way that he's seeing enough opportunity to ever trust unless you were in like a 20-team full PPR league. So not in love with it. With these, backup running back options in the later rounds, you want upside. You want some semblance of, okay, if there's an injury or if this guy's better than we think, he can really break out. I just don't see the upside in Roschon. And if it's a low ceiling running back late, I don't really want them. So I have not been drafting him. Another popular running back sleeper late has been Keaton Mitchell. It's been really late on Underdog. I would say like round 16, 17 is kind of where he goes in the drafts that I've seen. But I'm just not all that interested. I haven't been drafting him at all. The thinking is basically he was awesome as a rookie, very explosive. We obviously know the weekly ceiling of any running back on Baltimore. We know that, of course, Derrick Henry is going to be the lead back. But if Derrick Henry went down, they don't have Gus Edwards anymore. They don't have J.K. Dobbins. We know Justice Hill is capped and what he can be. And so the thinking is basically, second half of the season is an upside play. But I don't really think that he's going to be what he was last season this year. Maybe in year 3. This season kind of tough. He missed all of like the start to the season with an injury. He missed more time with a hamstring injury. But the big one is he tears his ACL in mid-December. And that's a really late time to tear your ACL. It means that he's going to miss like all of the offseason, right? He's not going to be ready for camp. He's not going to be playing in the preseason. He's not going to be healthy to start the year. So you got to know that in the back of your mind. When he does return, which could very well be week 8, 9, 10, he's going to be backing up Derrick Henry, and he's not going to be fully healthy. It's not like he's going to walk in there and get 20 touches, right? So, like, the best case scenario for Keaton Mitchell this season is a season-ending injury to Derrick Henry. They bring in another running back to kind of rotate in with him, and he gets like 7 to 8 touches a game and can sometimes break off a big play. Like, basically, your best case scenario is a little bit worse than he did last season. That's not great. So even though he's going pretty late in drafts, even though he was highly explosive, I just don't see a world where he produces high end numbers, and that has to happen. If that's like the biggest takeaway from this video is you gotta see a world where these players post high numbers, and there is no world where this season Keaton Mitchell has high numbers. Don't draft him late. One running back I thought when I made this video was going the exact same range as Keaton Mitchell, but is actually going in round like 13 or 14, and then earlier in redraft is Jaleel McLaughlin. I could not imagine spending a pick that early on Jaleel. Did he deserve more touches last season? Probably. But number one, no one's going to be featured in Denver. They're not going to feature a running back. It's going to be a committee all season, no matter what the injuries are. Number two, they drafted Audric Estime. They signed Blake Watson. Now, I know the team invested very little draft capital in both of these two, and actually no draft capital in Watson. He was a free agent, undrafted free agent, still rookie. But my model does not hate Estime. Blake Watson, if he can make the team, I would actually be a little bit concerned about him siphoning off touches from McLaughlin. Like, it's kind of like that Sean Tucker situation last season where it's like, could be nothing, but we will have some level of pause if he's able to make the team. So, Blake Watson could get cut. He could make the team and do nothing, but I have some level of concern that him being a really good pass catcher, a player that it seems like they like right now, and again, we're so early in the offseason, but I think that's my point, is that we're so early in the offseason, and there are already, like, there's so many names to throw out there. In what's gonna be a committee, how could you spend a 13th or a 14th round pick on Jaleel McLaughlin? Like, Javonte is the favorite to be the lead back. I probably wouldn't draft Javonte either at his ADP right now. It feels a little bit high. But you've got him as likely the lead back. You've got Esteen being an early down specialist that I think is going to make the team, going to be productive this season, not super in fantasy, but going to have touches. You've got McLaughlin competing with Blake Watson. You've got Pirine there, but again, if Blake Watson makes the team, it probably is at the expense of Pirine. So one of those two. But regardless, one of those two is going to siphon off a few touches. And so it's like you start looking through all these backs on what's a mediocre offense that's going to be running back by committee. What do we say again? Zero upside. Is a crowded situation on a running back that they have nothing invested in, who they didn't even give a ton of touches to last season, and then they brought in more competition. It's like, no. Don't spend a 13th or a 14th round pick on Underdog earlier in redraft on McLaughlin. It makes absolutely no sense. 0% chance he is featured, even if there is an injury, even if there are multiple injuries. So if you watched this far, be sure to hit the like button. Even if you're subscribed, make sure the bell icon is clicked so you know when the newest videos are coming out. I'll be back tomorrow to go over the most polarizing players in drafts. A very interesting video. And that, my friends, is in this one. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, how about hitting the like button? How subscribe to the channel if you're new here? And thanks for watching.